There is nothing worse than going somewhere only to find out after you get there all the things you should have known about beforehand. And if you're thinking of moving to a new place, those things you need to know, well, they're critical. So let's not let that happen if you're thinking about moving to the Phoenix area. I'm Shawn Shackelton, your resource for all things real estate here in the Scottsdale and Phoenix market. Now, at the time of me recording this, it's summertime, so it's only fitting for us to talk about the weather, and more specifically, the heat. Most know that in the Phoenix area, it gets really hot in the summertime. But if you haven't experienced it, you might be underestimating just how hot it can get, or just how hot 110 degrees actually feels. Because here's our reality when it comes to the heat. We begin to heat up in May, and we can have a few 90-degree days in April. Now, we don't start seeing day after day after day of that intense heat until really June. And then we're talking 105 plus degrees. Then we get into July, and that's when we start to see 110 plus, and sometimes 115. And this will stretch through June, July, August, and even into September. In fact, we don't really start to see our temperatures cool down until the end of October. We will begin to see our mornings and our evenings cool off, but those midday temperatures remain pretty hot. And here are some of the things that those who have not had to deal with those temperatures, well, they just don't think about. I would get your car windows tinted if they're not done already. This can really cut down on the heat and the glare of the sun, whether you're driving or parked. On one of my cars, I actually had a clear tint put on my front windshield that cut the heat by about 75%, and it made a major difference. You also need to make sure you're in the shade as much as possible when you're outside. And always wear sunscreen. When you live in the Phoenix area, even if you're not outside all that often, if you're just going from your car to stores or in and out of your house, going to get the mail, things like that, you will start to notice that you are gonna get tan lines on your feet if you're wearing sandals. It just doesn't take that much time for the sun to hit your skin and create those tan lines. And always make sure you have water with you. Because yes, it is a dry heat, which most people make comments that it's a lot more tolerable of a heat than the heat and humidity, so you're just not as sweaty all the time. It's true, you won't feel as sweaty here, but that does not mean that you're not sweating. It's so hot that that sweat is evaporating off of your skin, so it is very easy to get dehydrated here. Now, something that many don't think about when it comes to sun and their homes is which direction does your home face? Meaning, which direction does your backyard face? And if you're looking at a house and it faces west, well, even if you have a pool, in the dead heat of the summer, your backyard could be so hot, you will not want to use it. Now, when I start talking to people about this, they immediately go, well, then I'll just get my backyard facing east. And although that might be great, you have to know that in the morning, you're gonna get a lot of sun, and then in the afternoon, you're gonna get all shade. Now, in the summertime, great. In the wintertime, when maybe you wanna sit out and feel that sun on your skin or experience some sun, you're gonna have nothing, and it's gonna be a pretty cold backyard. Then the next one, they say, well, then I'll just get my backyard facing north. Again, it can be okay if your backyard is deep enough, but if it's not, then your house is often gonna shade a lot of your backyard. And again, you're gonna run into the same thing in the winter where your backyard is often cold and you're not really gonna wanna use it that much. Now, the one that I think is the best exposure is southern exposure. And oftentimes people go, well, southern exposure, aren't you still gonna get a lot of sun? Well, the benefit about southern exposure is where the sun actually is in the sky. In the summertime, it's farther in the sky, so you get less sun. And in the wintertime, it's in a different location in the sun and you're actually gonna get more sun when you want it. Now, I know this is all personal preference because I will tell you that I have had clients come and purchase a home as a second home and they want western exposure because when they're here, they want as much sun as they can get. So it really comes down to what are you going to be using your home for? If it's a primary residence, you might want to think about this a little bit more. If it's a second home and you really want the sun, then western exposure might not be terrible for you. But it is something to think about. Now, something else that many don't think about when it comes to the sun is their furniture and rugs actually fading if they're in a room that gets a lot of sun. I've seen it happen. These pieces of furniture might be in a room where it gets great sun and they love it. They use the furniture all the time, but then they go to move it and they go, oh my gosh, they didn't realize they'll move the furniture and the rug will be really faded and that part of a couch will be really faded. And unless you get it reupholstered, there's not much you can do about it. So you'll want to be really aware of this when you're placing your furniture in rooms that you know are going to get a lot of sun, especially if they're expensive pieces. Now, something else about the weather here that's a little different than just the sun. Many people think, well, it's the desert, it's always hot, and that's not always true. Our winters can actually have a few days that are surprisingly cold. In the North Scottsdale area, we can actually see a few nights that actually get below freezing. Now, let me clarify, because our winters are really like December and January. It's a very short winter. And during that time period, our highs can see 65 degrees. Now, I know people that are coming from the Midwest and the East Coast look at me and they go, oh my gosh, it's like summertime there. But when you move here full time, I'm telling you now, it will take 1 year. 1 year for you to acclimate to it. So don't go get rid of all your jackets and everything thinking that I'm never going to need a jacket again. Because after a year of people being here, that's usually when I will hear them say, it was a little cold this winter. So you will probably need some of those jackets. And you'll be glad you kept a few. Now, the next thing that many people make the mistake of is not calculating their commute from where they're going to purchase a home. Phoenix is a sprawling city, and traffic can be significant during peak hours. And many people fail to consider the actual commute, whether it be to work, to school, or all the other places that you love to go. It's really important to research the traffic patterns and choose a location with a reasonable commute, because this really can improve your quality of life. Now, I will say for those that are coming from a big city, I will often say, well, if you're looking at a house here and this is where you're gonna work, your commute time is probably gonna be about a half an hour. And they'll look at me and go, oh, that's nothing. So it is all relative, but it is really important for you to investigate. Now, something to know about our traffic is that it's not everywhere. So let's say you wanted to live in North Scottsdale, but you were going to work on the west side of the town. That means you're going to have reverse traffic, because for the most part, the people on the west side are coming into Scottsdale to work and vice versa going home. So if you're doing the opposite, then the traffic won't be as bad. So just knowing the direction of the traffic at different times of the day is an important thing to know. Now, while we're on the topic of commutes and traffic, something that people sometimes mistakenly think is that they won't need a car. And we are a very car-dependent city. We do have public transportation, but it makes it a lot more difficult for you to just get around. Then when you think about the heat we just talked about, waiting for public transportation is not going to be ideal. Now, there are a few places around the valley that you could live and work very close by and not need a car, but they are very few and far between. And it would take very careful planning for you to execute having that kind of live, work, walkability for your job and where you live. So it's just something for you to know. Something else that some make a mistake about is not exploring different neighborhoods. The Phoenix area has many different cities and many different neighborhoods, each offering unique amenities, lifestyle, and community vibes. Some people choose a city or a neighborhood just because that's the one that they hear about the most often, but it might not be the right fit for them. It's important to explore other options, ask questions, and really lean on your real estate agent to help you explore other neighborhoods that might be a better option for you. I know for me, when I'm talking to clients, I'm asking a lot of questions about their lifestyle because it helps me understand what they like to do besides just work and home. This also helps me suggest other neighborhoods and other cities maybe to them that they weren't thinking about originally. Then it's important for you to take the time to go and explore those neighborhoods. Research the different neighborhoods and make sure that whatever neighborhood you end up in is the right one for you. Now, if you're moving with a family, another mistake that some make is not researching all the schools, because most people that move here don't realize that we have open enrollment. See, with open enrollment here, you have the ability to put your kids into the school that you feel is the right fit for them, rather than feeling like the only school they can go to is the school that is within the boundaries of the home that you decide to purchase. Instead, here what you can do is you can really investigate all the public schools, find the one that's the right fit. As long as there's space, you can enroll your child in that school. Now, in doing so, you have to know a few things. One, you will be responsible for getting your kids to and from school every single day. There are not additional buses that come into certain areas to help get your kids to that school. And number two is that if you do have a child with special needs, they will have to go to the home school within the boundaries of where you purchase a home. The other thing that we have is we have a ton of charter schools. We have places like Basis and Great Hearts, and then a plethora of private schools as well. And all of these choices really allow you to make the best best choice for your child. Now, I will tell you that I have a few friends and clients that have put their kids in a certain school that they loved. As their child got older, maybe that school was no longer the right fit for them. Having the ability to change your child's school midway through or at the end of a year so that they go into a new school fresh in the new year that is a better fit for them at that time in their life, it just allows for so much flexibility and making sure that you're making the best choice for your child. Now, in the Phoenix area, I know we don't get a ton of different types of weather. Like, we don't get snow and we don't really get hail, but we do get rain from time to time. And there are a few times when people can make some big mistakes when it comes to this rain. The first one is during our monsoon season. This is when we can see heavy rain and strong winds. The wind usually starts first, followed by a very big rain. And this rain comes fast and it will fall hard. So much so that it will decrease the visibility pretty significantly. And during times like this, you really have to be careful when you're driving. Not only because there is torrential rain coming down, but if you're not familiar with where you're driving, you will not know that in some places here in the Phoenix area, we have washes. And so when this rain comes fast and hard, you will all of a sudden have water and debris run out onto the roads, which can cause a lot of problems. Now, there are some times that it seems as if a monsoon is coming, but we don't end up with any rain. And instead of the rain, we get blowing dust. And when I say blowing dust, I mean a wall of dust that will come across the desert floor, which again reduces visibility if you're driving and can be very dangerous. And it also just gets everything really dirty. Now, during our winter, every so often, we can get a lot of rain, where it will rain for like a week. When this happens, a big mistake that some people make is that if they're driving around in certain areas, again, where those washes are, the city will put up signs that says, "Do not enter when flooded." Some people don't realize how deep that water is or how fast that water is actually moving, and they will drive through it. Well, this is a big mistake because if you get stuck in that water and need to be rescued, we have what's called a stupid motorist law. And so not only will you be paying for the damage of your car, you will also be paying the city back for your rescue. Now, if you would like to see what neighborhoods to absolutely avoid in Phoenix, make sure you take a look at this video. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.